I've been wanting to chat a little bit about what life was like for me before van life. This story begins about 10 years ago when I first moved to New Orleans after graduating high school to go to college here at Tulane University. It is pretty weird walking around campus again after so many years. Definitely a little bit nostalgic. I shattered my ankle once playing football on this quad. That was fun. It's pretty strange. So much has changed around campus. There's a lot more buildings, a lot more students it seems like.
College kids! Hey, college kids! College kids!
I don't see them.
But at the same time, a lot of things remain the same. Like going to class like smells the same. A lot of the different buildings and different parts of campus have like the same smells. It's really weird. The first place that I lived in New Orleans was at this freshman dorm here on campus. It was a great time. I got really lucky. I had a great group of guys on my floor and we all became pretty good friends, and a lot of them I'm like really close friends with to this day. Jordan, for example, from the previous video, one of my best friends, I met him while living on this floor. So I'm really grateful for that experience. I ended up living in freshman dorms the rest of the time that I lived on campus at Tulane. It's not because I stayed a freshman or anything like that, but I ended up becoming an RA to save money, and I worked as an RA in freshman dorms. I don't know if I'd say Tulane is a party school necessarily, but it's definitely in a party city. So when freshmen come here for the first time, they kind of lose their minds a little bit, and working as an RA in a freshman dorm meant that I got to experience all those things firsthand. We're now on our way over to the first place that I lived in New Orleans off of Tulane's campus, and the roads have definitely not gotten any better to get over there. It's classic New Orleans. I lived in this house here with 6 other guys during my final semester at Tulane. I was fortunate enough to be able to graduate from Tulane a semester early to help save some money, so I only got to spend a few months there. And it was probably enough. Like, it was a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but if you're familiar with New Orleans architecture at all, you'll know about shotgun style houses. So this house here had 2 walk-through rooms, so 2 of my roommates lived in a room that everyone else had to walk through all the time in order to get to the bathroom and get to the back of the house. Fortunately, I didn't live in one of those walk-through rooms, but things were pretty crazy around there. I just remember this semester me kind of freaking out a lot because I was trying to like plan for my future. I didn't have a job yet. I was about to graduate like in a few days. I still didn't have a job. I had done some interviews and it was kind of just a crazy time in my life. After living in that house, I graduated and then drove back to Massachusetts, essentially moved back to Massachusetts with all my stuff. Sure enough, like the day that I got back after like the 26-hour plus drive, I got an email from the company that I'd interviewed with offering me a job back in New Orleans. So it was kind of a wasted drive and a wasted trip, but it was nice. I was really excited to finally have a job, to have something. I was going to come back to New Orleans. All of my friends were still in school here, so it was really great. Upon moving back to New Orleans, I really needed to find somewhere to live. My room in that previous place that I was just talking about had already been filled up, so I was kind of in a rush. I ended up finding somewhere with a guy that I had known from my freshman year who actually lived in that dorm that I was talking about earlier, and then with another roommate who I, to this day, literally don't know anything about. Like, I might have talked to him 5 times while I was living in that place for 6 months. I don't even know his last name, but he lived there too, this other guy, and it was kind of a strange situation. Our landlord landlords lived in an apartment that was also attached to the building, but there were a lot of problems with this apartment. Like the AC would always go out, and that was a huge issue in the summer. Like I was starting this new job and I would come home exhausted, and like it would be 85 or 90 degrees in the apartment and the AC wouldn't work, and it was pretty miserable. But the weirdest thing that happened, and the most frustrating thing I guess you could say, is we woke up one morning and I just remember getting a text message, a group message from our landlords saying that they had moved to Alaska. They just randomly decided to move to Alaska, and they just left us with all these problems with the apartment. And they were like, oh, here's our address, just mail the rent checks to this address. Needless to say, one of my roommates just stopped paying rent altogether, and we definitely had our share of problems for the next couple of months. I got out of that lease as soon as I could. It's so strange remembering how to get places like subconsciously. I haven't been to this house in years, probably since the day that I moved out, but I remembered how to get here instantly. I don't even remember the street names or anything. I just was able to navigate back here without any problems. So I got another roommate and then moved into this place here, and it was definitely an experience. I guess you could say it was kind of like a slum. The landlord didn't really care about fixing things. It was one of those situations. He was just trying to make his money, and we had our share of issues for sure with the landlord and with the place. I still remember the biggest issue. If I had to choose one word to characterize the problems with this place, I guess it could be termites, but I think it would probably be mice. It's the only place I've ever lived in that had a mouse problem, and I remember the day that my roommate discovered the mouse problem. He ended up going to buy, this poison. It looked like corn on the cob, but it definitely was not corn on the cob. Like it was something else. And then I just remember him putting it down and then going into another room and then coming back into the room that he put it down in the kitchen like a few minutes later, and all of it was gone. And he just like screamed and started freaking out. And I came out running out to see what had happened, and it was, yeah, those mice are probably not with us anymore. They're probably still in the walls of that place to this day, but yeah, it definitely wasn't the nicest place we lived. After our lease ended after a year, we got the heck out of there and moved on to somewhere else. And this final place was particularly important because it was the last time that I signed a lease and the last time that I was paying a consistently high monthly rent to live somewhere. During the time that I was living here, I came to the conclusion that I was spending way too much money on things. I know I've talked about this in previous videos. Became obsessed with reducing my monthly expenses. While I was living here, I bought the Element. This was the time that I got this. I even experimented with a couple of different conversions and camper setups inside the Element while I was here. Definitely an important part of my life. It was a beautiful house, don't get me wrong, like probably the nicest place I've ever lived. Really nice stainless steel appliances. I had some really cool roommates and it worked out for a while, but I made the decision while I was here to make some serious changes in my life, and I'm really happy that I did. And that pretty much concludes the trip down memory lane between moving out of that last house and moving into this guy full time. I lived in a couple other houses here and there, but didn't really pay any rent. I haven't paid rent in like 3 years, and I don't really intend to for a very long time moving forward. Thanks for watching, guys. Before ending the vlog, I have quite a few overdue Patreon pledges to thank. Lewis Gwynn, Mark Sky, Wandering Memphis, Emmanuel Torres, and Deb Salazar. Thank you guys so much for joining the Patreon team. My plan is going to likely be to hit the road very soon. I just got that package in today that I was waiting for, so it'll only be a matter of days before I'm back on the road. I'll talk to y'all in the next video.